Welcome to the 2023 AACO Dublin City School Board Candidate Forum. AACO stands for Asian American Coalition of Ohio. It is a nonpartisan 501c3 organization founded in 2017. Its mission is to inspire, engage, and empower the ATI communities through education, leadership, and active participation in civic and public affairs. To learn more, please follow us on Facebook at AA Coalition Ohio. So before we get started, here's a quick PA that any US citizen 18 or older on or before November 7th of 2023 can register to vote, as long as that's done by October 10th. So on October 11th, the early voting will start. And on October 31st, application for absentee ballot will be due. And please remember to vote on November 7th during the general election day. If any of you require any help with voting, please contact us at aaco@aacohio.org. So a quick housekeeping item is that we thank you everybody for your interest in the candidate forum, and thank you for submitting all the questions to the candidate. It would not be possible due to the time constraint to answer all the questions. Thank you for your understanding. Please continue to submit questions with the Q&A function. So then, because we want to hear from you and the candidates wants to hear from you. We are very grateful to have Ms. Heather Tubbs Cooley, Ms. Amy Messick, Ms. Diva Sony, and Mr. Chris Valentine joining the forum. To be fully transparent, we were in contact with all the candidates. Ms. Everhart thanked us for reaching out and said she is not interested in attending the forum. And Mr. Lykins informed us yesterday at noon that unfortunately, he is unable to attend. We are very grateful to Dr. Ted Sun for accepting our invitation to be the moderator of tonight's candidate forum. Dr. Sun is not affiliated with AACO. So Dr. Ted Sun graduated from Dublin in 1990 when we had only one high school. Since then, Dr. Sun has built 2 educational institutions. He built Transcontinental Institution of Higher Education in the European Union and Transcontinental University in Dublin, Ohio. Both universities offer the most advanced MBA and PhD programs in the marketplace. They also provide systemic solutions for businesses of various sizes, including executive development and building skills-based organizations. So without further ado, please take it away, Dr. Sun, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Candidates, go ahead and turn on your cameras for everybody to see as a starting point. Just for everybody to know, you will see a timer function on the side as the candidates speak. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question that's asked. First, we will show a question on the shared screen so everybody can see the question. And then I'm going to take the question off so everybody can see the faces of the candidates as they make the responses. And you'll see a timer on the side. Hopefully, I'm not going to have to cut anybody off and you're all good enough to monitor yourselves in the 2 minutes allotted time. And then if there's any need for clarification or anything, I may ask a follow-up question. Otherwise, I'll go to the next person. All the candidates are going to be answering questions alphabetically. So, and they'll all agree to use first names on this particular conversation, so everybody can be relatively casual in that sense. Okay, so without further ado, here is the first question. So the first question is simply an introduction. So if you could all introduce yourself, how are you affiliated with Dublin City Schools, your qualifications, both technical and any kind of specific soft skills for serving on the board, and why you're running for this position. Okay? So, and you can see on the bottom here is Heather's going to be first answering, then Amy, then Diva, and then Chris. Okay. So Heather, go ahead and answer your answer your question, please.
Okay, good evening. I want to say thank you for hosting, and thank you for everyone who's here tonight and spending your time listening to us and getting more informed. My name is Dr. Heather Tubbs Cooley. I am a mom of 3 kids in the Dublin City Schools, and I am a professor tenured at Ohio State. I'm a researcher at Nationwide Children's Hospital. I am a PhD program director. I teach research methodology to undergraduates, graduates, clinical fellows. Let's see. I do a lot of service work for the Dublin City Schools. I've been volunteering in many, many roles since living here. And I think if I didn't mention this, I have 3 children, one in elementary, middle, and high school. So I'm seeing everything across the spectrum of education in our district right now. Well, I've told you a little bit about my qualifications. I'm an educator. I sit in several leadership roles at Ohio State. I am also a clinician by background, in fact, in pediatrics. So I also have a perspective on pediatric healthcare issues, including mental health. And I'm running for the board because as a public educator myself at Ohio State, I think it's really important that we continue to have strong, capable, qualified leadership in our public schools, leadership that values the contributions of all students, that leadership that makes sure that we're continuing to open doors for all students across our district. I believe that we need to make sure that we are fiscally sound. And that's also something that I bring to the table in terms of technical skills is financial management, budgeting. That's something that I do with taxpayer dollars that I manage as part of my everyday job. So that's who I am in a nutshell, what I bring to the district, and why I'm running.
Great, thank you very much. Amy, you're next.
Hi, I'm Amy Messick, and first and foremost, I am a mom to 2 boys. One is a junior currently at Kaufman High School, and the other is a sophomore at Ohio State University. And I have been fortunate to see all levels of education that Dublin provides, and to see my son, who's the oldest, who was in all AP classes, was able to take a specialty language. He was able to take Japanese for 4 years, and now he's taking Japanese in college. And then my little one, he was on an IEP, and to see that aspect of special education. But as far as my qualifications go, I have been a 23-year teacher at Hilliard Darbie High School. I teach AP government. I teach a dual enrollment class for Kenyon College, Political Science 200, and I also teach a regular government class that is mainly inclusion students. And through that, I have learned what it is to be a teacher and what the schools are for. I have a master's in educational leadership, and that taught me the skills it takes to be on the school board. It is the same degree that all principals get. So it has a school finance component to it, school law component to it. So I have that education as well. But more importantly, I'm in the trenches every single day and seeing what our students need to be able to go out beyond Dublin. I'm so sorry. I keep saying Hilliard. It's my job. Beyond Dublin, and make it and make their world a better place and what they want to do beyond K-12. So I'd be the only K-12 educator on the board if elected.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. Next, we have Diva. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diva Sony, and I'm running for the Dublin City Schools Board of Education. I want to start off by thanking the AACO for giving me the chance to speak tonight. In a school district where 21% of our students are Asian American, it's more important than ever that we have someone on the board who can advocate for our community's specific needs and interests. With that being said, I'm currently a student at The Ohio State University. studying public policy and data analytics. Public policy specifically is something that I'm very passionate about and have devoted much of my life towards. In the past, I've worked for the Ohio Consumers Council, a government agency. I've worked in the Ohio State House under a state senator, and I've served as a delegate to the Girl Scouts National Council, where I made decisions regarding policies and budget for the country's Girl Scouts nonprofit. However, the reason I'm running for this position is more so because before I was a student at OSU, I was a student in Dublin City Schools. From kindergarten up until I graduated in 2022, this school district was my life. And as such, I was able to experience just what makes this district so phenomenal. However, I was also able to see some of the major issues plaguing this district and its student body. There's this generational divide that's formed between the students and the board administration, and that's something that I want to fill. With rising mental health issues and students still facing consequences of the pandemic, like lowered early literacy rates, and only 44% of our high school seniors meeting state standards for college and career readiness, we need student representation on this board to address the issues that are specific to this generation. That's why I decided to run in the first place, because I want to provide the board with a fresh, new voice that is truly representative of the students it aims to serve.
Great. Thank you very much. This is pretty amazing. So for everybody, stop right at 2 minutes. Now the challenge is to you, Chris. Go ahead and start.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening and engage with fellow candidates and obviously the panel. I'm completing my 20th year on the Dublin Board of Education, and I said this at our last chamber meeting. It is a bit ironic to go right after Diva because I was elected at the age of 19. And so many of the things that she speaks about hit home. I've over time been able to see Dublin through many different lenses. Similar to Diva, I went to Wyandotte Elementary, moved on to Grizel Middle School, and then later graduated from Dublin Kaufman High School. At that point, being 19, my career path has taken a number of different changes, but aside from my career, what's most important to me and the reason that I'm continuing to run is I'm passionate about our community, and I have 4 young kids underneath the age of 8 that are going through the system. Nothing means more to me in the world than my kids and my family, and to have an opportunity to continue to serve and know that they're going to go through a system that I was so fortunate to go through myself means the world to me. Dublin's home. I've been born and raised here. My parents purposely came here, just like many families across the Dublin City School District. And when I take a step back and really look and examine the past 20 years, I'm proud of a number of different things. We've had a number of great accomplishments through that time, and I've worked with a number of great people. But the one thing that I think that is important to note is through that time, I've been a consistent, experienced voice on the board, somebody that brings people together, who earns the respect of my fellow board members and tries to create commonality as we try to move forward. As a group of 5, you have the ability to influence change. As one individual, you don't. But I understand the importance of working together. I understand the issues that the district's facing, and I look forward to the opportunity to hopefully continue to serve this great community.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for a great introduction and also keeping on time. So the next 4 questions, so it's for the good of the audience. Nobody's ever seen the questions, so the questions are brand new, just as you're hearing it from me. The candidates also seeing it for the first time. Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, what are your priorities for the city of for Dublin City Schools? What knowledge and skills do you need to further develop and achieve your priorities? Okay. So this question is going to be posted to the chat area for everybody to see. So first up is going to be Amy. Go ahead, Amy.
That's a great question. So my top priorities are to maintain the rigor in the classroom and to make sure that all our students are able to achieve at their highest abilities, whatever that ability may be. And we need to do this by increasing our knowledge of curriculum and what works best, including the science of reading and instilling that with with true fidelity and making sure that all of our students are getting a phonics-based approach to reading. Even those that have passed elementary school but missed out on phonics, we might need to incorporate some of those reading skills into the high school and middle school as well. I do have training in that area. I was Wilson trained for phonics. And so I do feel that I do have the skills to understand that process, however, not necessarily how to help implement the curriculum. That will be down to the teachers. So I feel that that is an area on how to do so efficiently, effectively, while also looking at the cost behind that. I also want to make sure that we are taking care of the mental health of all of our students. It is keenly important, as I see every day with my own students, how much mental health impacts their ability to learn. We need to make sure that we are taking care of every child. Every child that comes through our door needs to know that they are welcome, that they are safe, and that they matter. Because if they don't have that, they cannot learn. It's basic Maslow's hierarchy of needs that they have to have those things. So we need to make sure that we are reaching out to all of our students and making sure that their mental health is being taken care of, and making sure that they all feel welcome no matter where they are coming from in their background.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. Can you expand a little bit on the second part of that question? What knowledge and skills will you need to further develop to achieve your priorities?
So the knowledge and skills that I think I would need is knowing who to reach out to in the community to bring in, and which voices we need to have more of. That is one area that I think is increasingly important, and probably I do not know who the voices are that we should be reaching out to, especially when it comes to diversity and the different groups that we have within Dublin itself. So we have a lot of diversity, and we need to make sure that all voices are heard and that we bring those people in. I can say that one of my son's favorite things in the Japanese class that he had was when some Japanese women from the community would come in and cook food and allow them to have the conversations and to really learn Japanese. And I think it's those types of relationships that we need to really build and foster, whether it be for diversity purposes or it be for furthering skills such as apprenticeships. I need to know, my own area that I want to grow in is that community aspect, and knowing who in the community can help and support our schools better. Does that answer it?
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so Diva, you're going to be next. I'll repeat the question. What are your top priorities for Dublin City Schools, and what knowledge and skills will you need to further develop and achieve your priorities?
So my top priority for this school district is definitely going to be to ensure the success of our students once they leave high school, but also to ensure their physical and mental well-being while they are within the school district. In terms of ensuring their success past high school, one thing that I would want to focus on is college and career readiness. Our school district has done a really good job of getting our students college ready in the past. However, we focused on it so much that we haven't given our students as many opportunities to get ready for careers if they do decide to go straight into the workforce after high school. That's something that I think we need to give our students more support on, providing them with more career exploration opportunities. Additionally, another issue that I think we should focus on as a district is early literacy. Right now, we're rated a 3 out of 5 stars in terms of early literacy. And more significantly, multiple elementary schools within this district are only rated 2 out of 5 stars, meaning they're not meeting state standards for early literacy. That's something that students need to be proficient in to be successful through the rest of their academic career and just future in general. And then lastly, I think we need to focus on providing our students with support when it comes to mental health. We know in the last 10 years just how much mental health issues have increased, particularly for this generation. And we need to be providing students with support so they can be at their best while they are in school. In terms of skills that I would need to develop, I think what I really want to focus on is listening to experts. While I can try my best to learn as much about mental health and psychology as possible, I think what we should do is turn towards our experts, our school psychologists, our partner Centero, to listen to what they think is best. And additionally, I want to make sure that everything we do is backed up by data and empirical evidence. So looking at studies to determine what's best.
Great, thank you very much, Diva. The next is Chris Valentine. I'll read the question again. So what are your top priorities for Dublin City Schools? And what knowledge and skills will you need to further develop and achieve your priorities? Go ahead, and Chris.
Yeah, thank you. For me, it's relatively simple. There's three different priorities or objectives that I look at when it comes to the school district. The first is providing a first class education to every student. I think that we have to start there and end there. Second, we need to manage growth and maintain our district's excellent financial standing. Over the course of the past 20 years, we've been very fortunate to have the backing of the taxpayers more often than not as we've gone back to levy and bond issues, but our district continues to grow. There's challenges that come along with that, whether or not be with student population, to the background and socioeconomic issues, to our growing special ed population. And then third, I'd like to ensure the best possible staff here in Dublin City Schools. And that starts at the top with the superintendent and treasurer and goes on down to our teaching staff. I am incredibly proud of the staff that we have here in Dublin. They do tremendous work inside of our buildings. Some buildings are much different than others and have a whole other host of challenges. But at the end of the day, we're dedicated to bringing the best staff and committed individuals into our classrooms to ensure each student is receiving that first class education. Before I wrap up my comments about the priorities, I think one important thing to note that I've experienced over my 20 years, when you come into a board position, it's easy to think that you're going to be involved in more of the daily operations of the district. And the Ohio Revised Code state law really spells out what the role of a board member is. And it's a difficult juggling act because there's passions and issues that we all have, some that hit closer to home. But at the end of the day, it's understanding what your role as a board member and how you interact with the superintendent, treasurer, and your other four board members in order to really create meaningful change to ensure the best for the school district.
Okay, Chris, thank you very much. Can you expand on a little bit for the second question? What knowledge and skills will you need to further develop and achieve your priorities?
Yeah, I'm continually learning. It's been 20 years. I've served on a number of different committees, but you work with different people, people who bring different perspective, represent different parts of the community that you may not have previously had the opportunity to do. And I think as we welcome 3 new board members most recently, I would hope that all 3 of them would tell you that one of the things that I've tried to strive to do is to listen to their perspective, to understand where they're coming from, and be able to apply that to our discussions and inevitably making informed decisions. But beyond that, school finance, school law is continually changing, and the role of a board member is to stay on top of it, to stay engaged, and to ensure that we're making the best possible decisions with the information that's at hand.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. And finally, we have Heather. I'll read the question one more time. What are your top priorities for Dublin City Schools? What knowledge and skills will you need to further develop and achieve your priorities?
Yeah, thank you for the question. 3 priorities. First that I want to talk about is I call this be the best at getting better. Dublin is a good school district. It's a very good school district, but sometimes I think that we have a little bit of hubris about how great we are. As Diva pointed out, we've got some gaps to close. We have gaps both in literacy. We also have some gaps in mathematics. So I see opportunities across our curriculum and across our outcomes that we're getting to be able to close some of the gaps through taking on a positive mindset of let's be the best at actually improving our outcomes, right? At the end of the day, this is what we produce. We produce students going out into the world. So I want us to have a strong outcomes orientation and with a continuous improvement mindset using our data. This is something I forgot to emphasize in the first question, but I really am an expert in data and evidence utilization and implementation. So that's one thing. Let's be the best at getting better. We have room to grow. Let's all, start rowing in the same direction on our outcomes. The second thing that I would like to do as a board member is help us continue to steward our resources. And this means both money and people. This means, especially as we're having levy conversations and talking about taxpayer resources, I think it's very, very important to continue to be fiscally responsible. I think board members have a duty to prioritize that. Stewarding our resources means our people as well. It means our teachers, it means our staff members. This is an area where I think I have some room to learn for sure, the intricacies of school finance and Ohio, the way that Ohio finances public education, because I want to be able to know what the levers are that we can pull as board members to make sure that our district is fully resourced. And finally, my last priority, which is equally important, is making sure that we have equity of opportunity and equity of access to opportunity across the district, regardless of what high school or what catchment area a student is in.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, we're going to go on to the next question here. So the next question is about the ballot that's coming up in finance. Okay, Diva will be answering the question first. So the question is, the November ballot will have a 7.9 mil operating levy to address enrollment growth. If it passes, how will you ensure that the funds are effectively used within the DCS budget? Which sections of the budget will you want to ensure that the funds are spent with accountability for our children's future? Okay. Diva, go ahead and get started.
So the levy is something that's coming up on the same day that we're going to be elected. But if elected to the board, it'll be our job to actually ensure that those funds are used adequately. I think that our priority in how we use the funds is most definitely to meet enrollment. In the next 10 years, about 270 new students will be coming into the district each year, and we know enrollment is going to continue to increase. Right now, Abraham Depp Elementary School is already at meeting capacity. So what we do need to focus on is just ensuring that we use our money towards the 15th elementary school that we'll be building, but then also towards ensuring that class sizes do not needlessly increase. If it doesn't pass, that's what's going to happen. And then another thing that I do think we need to make sure our funds are put towards are some of our advanced programs, like the IB diploma program and some of our AP classes. This kind of opportunity that we have in this district is part of what makes this district unique and is part of what helps our students to be prepared for the future. Those are two things that will partly be cut if the levy is not passed. And I think when we do get that money, we need to be putting it in towards those programs because they are so important to the well-being of our district. We need to be helping our students so they are prepared for the future. And part of that comes from the special classes that we have that other districts do not have.
Thank you very much, Diva. Next, we have Chris. I'll read the question again, just for clarifications for everybody's on the same page. The November ballot will have a 7.9 mil operating levy to address enrollment growth. If it passes, how will you ensure the funds are effectively used within the DCS budget? Which sections of the budget would you want to ensure that the funds are spent with accountability for our children's future, balancing both academics and athletics?
I've been fortunate to have the opportunity over the past 20 years to be engaged in this process from year to year. I've been on the finance committee for the Board of Education for a majority of my time. As we talk about district operating funds and how they're allocated, how they're spent, over 80%, just over 80% of our operating budget is with staff salaries and benefits. And a big reason for that is because we have experienced staff members from the teaching perspective. And when you have experienced teachers, which we're able to reap the benefits of that in the classroom for our children, that does mean that it tends to be on the higher side of salaries and benefits. What becomes important as you take a step back and examine what is going on across so many buildings in our district is, excuse me, how that looks in terms of the overall staffing plan, being able to stay in budget, to stay on plan, to collaborate between the curriculum department, the building level, and the treasurer's office to ensure from the get-go that, one, we're able to properly plan based off of expected growth, but also to be able to pivot and make changes as necessary in order to extend our funds and make sure that we're being as accountable to the taxpayers as we can. When it comes to the accountability for our children's future, balancing academics and athletics, we're fortunate here in Dublin that we've got a number of different programs, starting at the elementary level, moving on through the high school level, that provide children opportunities both in and outside the classroom. I think as a district and as a community, we're committed to continuing to do that. I don't think that one has to sacrifice for the sake of another. We need to be here to ensure that we are properly planning and laying out a set of opportunities that allows each child to pursue the path that best fits their passion and their goals in life.
Thank you very much, Chris. Just a quick question for the candidates. Do you want me to repeat the questions at all, or do you want to just go and go with it? No need to repeat? Okay, great. All right, that'll make it faster. All right, go ahead, Heather.
Okay. So if our levy passes, which personally I hope it does, there are a couple of things that I would like to do as a board member. Number one, I'll be looking very closely at expenditures, looking, meeting with the treasurer, understanding that we're on target with how we're spending, both in terms of our operating budget as well as our capital expenditures. With respect to the operating budget, healthcare is very similar as a service-oriented operation as education, where the majority of the expenditures are in staff salaries, staff benefits. What I'd like to do with respect to the operating budget to make sure that we are effectively using those funds is, can we look at redundancy in any of our positions? Do we have opportunities to tighten up in some places? Because I think that almost every organization that I've ever been a part of, there's always some room to tighten up a little bit. I also think that we would be wise to start looking at opportunities, strategic and innovative opportunities, particularly when it comes to our space and our capital expenditures, to think about how we are effectively using our space and whether and what we can do differently. So with respect to budget and even future thinking about spending and capital expenditures, I'd like to make sure that we have maybe tried some new creative ways to think about our curriculum, particularly at the high school level. New opportunities that potentially get some of our seniors out of the building and into work experiences that would benefit them. So I think that what I don't hear or what I haven't heard necessarily coming from the board are opportunities for innovation. And that is something that I would like to emphasize, particularly moving forward when we're talking about taxpayer dollars.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, last but not least, Amy.
So first, I want to say that I would definitely be leaning on Brian Kern for a lot of the budget. I do know that 80%, as I'm a teacher myself, I know that 80% comes from teaching staff and our benefits, but he is an award-winning treasurer for a reason. So looking at what he presents, and he will provide valuable information to the board members, and he has whenever asked. One of the things that I would like to do is maintain the rigorous programs that we have in Dublin City Schools. That is one of the reasons why Dublin City Schools is a destination school district that people choose to move into. And without those programs, I see that will really hurt some of our students that take advantage of the AP, the IB, and the academies that are offered over at Emerald Campus. And then also beyond that, any new programs that we put in place with any money, we need to make sure that we're doing it with a reason and with a goal, and making sure that we are achieving that goal and moving toward that goal. I have seen in education myself numerous times where new programs are put in place, new opportunities or new pathways for teachers and students. And really the outcomes because of implementation hasn't been to the fullest. And it seemed like it does waste, it could be wasteful of money. So making sure that any of those programs that we put in place really do have an end goal that we are trying to achieve, and that we are collecting data and doing our research to make sure that we are meeting that goal, and also seeing if there's any fallout from putting that program in place, just to be truly transparent with what we're trying to do.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. Question number 4. Chris will be the first to respond to this one. Dublin not only has special programs for developmentally challenged students, it also offers advanced elective programs, courses such as the IB, International Baccalaureate, and AP programs for more talented students. If the levy does not pass, one possible outcome is that these advanced programs may be on the chopping block. As a possible board member, how would your decision reflect the principle of equity that will advance each student at the level they need to, the level they need? Okay, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, unfortunately, during my time as a board member, we have been through budget cuts before. They're not easy. They're pressure filled. There are different segments of the community that have passion around different areas that hit home to them. One of the things that we have to consider as a board, if this does not pass, is really taking a look at how we are best utilizing taxpayer funds to be able to extend the life of our operating dollars. With that, class size is an extremely important part of the conversation. When you are in a situation with less than 15, less than 10 students in a class, it becomes a relative discussion point as to whether or not it is the most fiscally responsible decision while still weighing what's best for students. Unfortunately, if it doesn't pass, and we've been through this before, there's going to be some tough choices that we make that are going to be difficult for students. They're going to be change. I'm hopeful that much like my fellow candidates on this call, that we're not in a situation where we have to make make those sort of decisions after the election. But if it does, it's a part of our duty as board members in order to really evaluate and figure out what the community priority is beyond a limited amount of voices that we hear, and make decisions that are going to be fiscally responsible to our taxpayers. I was an AP student myself in the district. We didn't have IB. I helped bring IB here. I've been a part of a number of different opportunities where we've continued to expand the possibilities for our students in the school district. And I'll continue to look for ways to ensure that we're providing all students, whether or not they're at Scioto, Kaufman, or Jerome, an opportunity to really develop well beyond the classroom and pursue opportunities that are going to be life-lasting.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. Heather, you're next.
Yeah, this is a tough one because I have a sophomore who is planning on starting the IB program next year, and I'm going to remain optimistic about his prospects of being able to do so. I think this is an important question, the equity of maintaining high-level courses for students who are ready and need those actually, because we even at our younger grades, it is my opinion personally as a parent that we are not always serving our gifted students and our high-performing students as well as we could be, particularly like in gifted areas that don't have a pullout, for example. So when it comes to IB and AP, I fully understand the financial realities that we may be in if the levy does not pass. I would like to have a better understanding of how much these programs actually cost. And yes, from a perspective of students in chairs, cutting classes that have the fewest students in them from a numbers perspective makes sense, but I'm not sure from a district achievement perspective that makes sense. I'm not sure from a district reputation perspective it makes sense, and I'm not sure from an equity perspective that it necessarily makes sense. So what I would prefer to do if we are in a position, and I am on the board, where the levy doesn't pass, is let's look at other areas that we can we find redundancies to reduce? Can we find other non-instructional areas that, would not impact advanced classes or any classes, to be quite honest with you. I haven't had I'm not privy to the details of the finances in the way that other folks are, but I have to believe that, if we have a will to preserve some of these advanced courses, we probably can figure it out.
Great. Thank you very much, Heather. Next, we have Amy.
This one particularly concerns me that the AP classes would be on the chopping block, and I understand fiscally why that might be necessary, because those classes do typically have less students in them. But as an AP teacher myself, I know how incredibly important these classes are and what they can mean to students. It's not just the rigor, it also allows students to go to college for a lot cheaper. They are getting out of college credit. IB does the same thing, where they will receive college credit for these courses, and that can make or break whether or not some students are able to pay for college. So I find it vital that we try as hard as possible to keep these programs alive for those students that are looking at these as a way to save money when it comes to colleges. As part of by law, we have to provide for our students on IEPs, so there is nowhere to cut there. But also there is laws regarding gifted students and providing for our gifted students as well. And that's something that we need to be looking at and making sure that we are doing so with fidelity. As far as some options, I've been in this position before. My class sizes are low. My dual enrollment class, I currently only have 11 students in it. It would be gone if this were to pass, if it was in Dublin schools. So we have to look at other ways. Is there a possibility to move AP programs over to Emerald Campus so we can pull the students from all three high schools? There's different ways that we can really look at this and create other opportunities without completely doing away with these programs. I'm hopeful for, and I'm especially concerned for those juniors currently in IB that might have it pulled from them for their senior year.
Great. Thank you very much, Amy. Diva.
I mentioned this in the last question, actually, about the IB and AP classes. And this is a topic that I'm very passionate about because I'm very familiar with these classes. Mm-hmm. I spent the entirety of my junior year at Emerald Campus taking IB classes. Before that, my freshman, sophomore year, I took several AP classes. And then my senior year, I spent it at OSU through the College Credit Plus program. So I've really experienced all the different options for students if they want to try more advanced courses. And I think this is one of the most unique parts of our district, is that our students have accessibility to these advanced options. And like Amy was saying, these are very helpful for students if they do choose to go to college afterwards. When I started at OSU, I already had 50 credits under my belt because of all the advanced classes I was able to take in high school. That's something that sets our students apart and prepares them for the future. That's something that is a huge advantage that we give our students. I think that's why it's so important that we don't cut these programs. However, if the levy does fail and IB ends up getting cut along with some AP classes, I think we should really start relying on our College Credit Plus program, giving students the opportunity to take class at OSU or at Columbus State and really helping them to go through that application process. Right now, we don't emphasize that program as much because we have IB, because we have AP. But if those things are cut, then we should be supporting our students and giving them that as an option if they are advanced, if that's something they're seeking.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question, Heather, you're going to be taking this on first. So the question is, political views have crept into the schools and the school board. How would you heal the rift from multiple sides and foster a collaborative board focused on serving our children's education?
Okay, great question. This is a really important one, and I'm so happy to be able to talk about it because running for school board positions are nonpartisan positions. And what I have seen, particularly in 2021 to present, is that there's been a real push to bring partisanship into this process. We can see it in our communities. We can see it on our social media feeds. And I think it is disastrous when it comes to local government, because it impairs us, I think, when we get really entrenched in our partisan and political viewpoints. People don't listen to each other. They don't even talk to each other. On the school board, we have to be able to put partisanship aside. I am running from the outset. I knew that I was going to run fully in a nonpartisan way for this role, because I am not affiliated with a political party at all, actually. You know, of course, we all bring our viewpoints to the table, but it's always been important to me to be really independent and to be able to work with anyone, as long as we're all coming from a place of mutual common goals. That is something that I pride myself on. It is a role that I often serve professionally. I can bring people together in groups when we're having difficult discussions and be a consensus builder. We don't all have to agree. We don't all have to, at the end of the day, we're going to think differently sometimes about things. But I think when we come from a place of shared values and shared goals, we can get through just about anything together. And so that's also why I received the DEA, the Dublin Education Association endorsement recently, was for my track record and my ability to bring people to consensus, particularly on difficult topics. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Amy.
So I'm sorry, I'm going to look at the question again. So political views. So this is a great question. As the AP Government and Politics teacher, I have been studying politics for 30 years, and I have seen how much it has changed, and not for the better. And I know Chris Valentine and I were talking about this last week, where we do understand that even though we might have different opinions ideologically, that doesn't mean that we can't find common ground. And it takes strong leaders to be able to find that common ground. And honestly, until 3 years ago, I was not a registered Democrat, because I never wanted my students to be able to look up and see what my political affiliation was, until I realized if they couldn't figure out that by the time they graduated that I was union member and a teacher, that I would probably be Democrat, then maybe I didn't teach them so well. So I am now a Democrat. I do have the backing of the Democratic Party, but that more is for the outset, not for necessarily what's going on in Dublin itself. But right now we don't have a state school board. So everything that's going to come down from the state is going to be political. And I think that it's important to know what side people are on when they're looking at these bills that are coming down from the state house, and what they would support and how it might be implemented within their school district. But that doesn't mean that consensus isn't important. It absolutely is. And we definitely need to work on our negotiation skills. And I think that that is politics at its finest. And what I love absolutely about it is that talking and conversation, deliberation, and deliberate decision making that can only come. Ultimately, we're all representing people in Dublin, so we need to work together.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. Diva, you're next.
I definitely agree that school boards have become increasingly politicized over the past few years. This kind of hyper-politicization that I've seen in the past few years is part of the reason I decided to run in the first place, because I saw this growing trend of school boards becoming more focused on pushing political agendas than actually ensuring the well-being and academic success of our students. That's why I decided to run, because I wanted to actually represent those student interests. Regardless of what party board members identify with, I think our goal should always be to ensure that our students are prepared for the future. And that's what I plan to do. When we come to a standstill, when people start arguing, we just need to remember our students. Think about what they want and actually listen to their voices, actually listen to their concerns. Because if there's anybody who knows what issues they're facing, it's going to be them. And then in addition to that, we should also be looking at data, looking at empirical evidence, using the data collection methods that we have in the past, and using that to understand exactly what issues are facing this district, rather than using our political parties to try to guess at what issues are facing students right now.
Great, thank you very much. Chris?
Thank you. I've got to live this firsthand, and I do think that there's this notion that because of social media, because of the environment or atmosphere at times at Board of Education meetings, that there is this divisiveness amongst 5 members, even going back at the beginning of COVID and before we had the most recent change with Lindsay, Tiffany, and Diana getting elected. And I would tell you that it's a false notion. I think that the 5 of us in very difficult, turbulent times have been able to navigate that with a developing understanding for one another and mutual respect. It isn't always easy when you have the voices coming from either side that are so passionate. But we've been fortunate enough to develop those relationships that are far beyond what people get to see every other Monday for 2 hours. There's meaningful conversations that go on. And one of the things I take the most pride in over the course of my 20 years on the board is I've been elected into leadership many different times. And each of those votes, I've been able to, for example, most recently, Tiffany and Lindsay, who are both endorsed as Democrats in their election and come with different views and different experiences than I have, voted in favor of me. We've got a great working relationship. There's open and honest communication. We need to get back to that. And it's not necessarily with the board, but it's as the community as a whole. I'm in the very unique position, similar to Heather. I'm very fortunate to have earned the endorsement of the Dublin Educators Association. And at the same time, I am also one of the Republican endorsed candidates. And I don't think that happens very often, if ever. And I think a big part of that is because I make a strong point to be a consensus builder, somebody who listens to others, and inevitably tries to remove a lot of the background noise and ensure that we're focused on what we need to be focused on.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. So that concludes our planned 5 questions. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the questions from the audience. So these are some of the questions that was compiled, synthesized from the 140 some members that are attending right now. And then we'll also put this into chat. Okay. So the first question is a number of different participants asked about your perspectives on the levy. So what are your perspectives on the district's proposed levy, and how can the district spend smarter? So sorry, Amy, you're gonna go first on this one?
So my perspective on the proposed levy is that I really do hope it passes. However, I do also understand the economics of every household. You know, I'm a public school teacher. My husband is works at Ohio State, so he's in the public sphere as well. So we understand what it's like to budget and that this could be difficult for some families. So I truly respect that people have to vote with what's in the best interest of their family, but they also need to remember why they chose to live in Dublin as well. And most people decided to move here because of the schools, and the schools will only remain strong as long as we can fund all the programs for which they're known for. So as much as I know that that some families have to vote in the way that makes sense for their family budget, I'm hoping that others will really take into account why they moved into Dublin in the first place. And then as far as spending smarter, again, I think it goes back to making sure that whatever programs we have, that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, that we are following the data on that we are looking at making sure that if there was a goal implemented for a certain program, that goal is being met, and to make sure that we are implementing it to the fullest of its ability, to make sure that we're not only half implementing it, not giving enough training to the teachers, because we understand that will make them not follow through, and therefore money being spent unwisely. We also need to look at where we can trim. Again, is there positions maybe at central office, that don't impact the students, that could be combined. But as far as spending smarter, whatever we decide to do, we have to make sure that we're thinking of the children first and we're thinking of the students first in all decisions that are made with finances. So they should be the last group that is felt by a budget crunch. Just like in the family, whenever our belts are tightened, we try to make sure as much as possible that it is not on our children, and our children don't feel that. We need to do the same in the school district. Keep it as far away from the students as possible. They don't need to know our financial troubles.
Great, thank you. Diva, you're next.
So while if I'm elected, I'm not going to be able to affect whether the levy passes or not, because it's going to be elected on the same day as us. I am also in support of the levy, mainly because of what we might lose if the levy isn't passed. Earlier, we talked about IB being cut, as well as some AP classes, but a hiring freeze is also going to be put into place. And then class sizes will increase. We know that smaller class sizes are better for students and it's better for teachers. And those are two groups that we should be prioritizing as much as possible. Right now, Abraham Depp is at median capacity, and its capacity is 690 students, making it one of the largest in the district. It's imperative that we get this money in to get a 15th elementary school so we can meet our enrollment projections. However, I understand that for a lot of people, nobody wants to pay more. That's obvious. And what I think we should be doing is ensuring that what happened in 2018 doesn't happen again. Though Abraham Depp is our newest elementary school, it's already at median capacity. And that's because our enrollment rates exceeded the projected enrollment rates in 2018. That's something that could easily happen after this levy as well. And that's something I think we need to keep a close watch on in the upcoming years. If our enrollment does exceed projected growth, we need to be figuring out which areas we can cut so that we don't end up having to build a 16th elementary school in the next few years or a 4th high school. That's what I think we need to focus on, is just ensuring that we can still meet that enrollment, because that's something that we don't have control over.
Great, thank you very much. Chris?
Yes, I think it's important to note as we take a step back with the levy issue, just how school funding works here in Ohio. 82% of the dollars that make up our operating budget come from local property tax dollars. So we're heavily reliant upon the decisions that our taxpayers make here in Dublin. As we decided to put it on the ballot here for this fall, I don't think any of the 5 of us did it lightly. We all know the economic times. Some were difficult for others than some, but inevitably, in order for the district to be properly funded, in order for us to continue to manage and stay with a level of services to meet the growth that is occurring, we need to come back to the taxpayers here in the Dublin City School District in order to continue funding the district at the current level that we do. I said it that night, and I'll say it again. This is a part of the democratic process. Everybody has their opportunity within Dublin City School District that's a registered voter, where they get to have a say. Do we continue on the path that we're currently on and the services that we're able to provide? Or are the economic times that difficult that we need to be able to take a step back and be able to say, you know what, we've got to make some difficult decisions and make some difficult cuts. That is not easy. It's not something that I'm hopeful that any of us have to take part in, but it's the reality. Lastly, I think the last question, how can the district spend smarter? I think that also is a false notion. That was working under the assumption that we aren't spending wisely. I think that we are spending wisely. I think that we've got a great administrative team who helps guide us along, provide us the appropriate information. And over the course of my 20 years, I'm proud of the track record of my fellow board members. We understand just how fortunate we are to live here in Dublin and how important each and every taxpayer dollar is and what it means to the education for our students.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. All right, finally, Heather.
Yep. You know, one thing that, so let me be very clear, and I've stated it previously, and I just want to reiterate my position on the levy personally, even though I didn't vote to put the levy on the ballot, but as a parent and as a citizen, I do support it. I do understand the financial difficulties that people are in. I definitely get it. And it is a personal decision that everyone is going to have to make for themselves. And if we don't pass the levy, we will figure it out. And that is one of the reasons why I hope the public is very thoughtful about who they put on the board, who they decide to vote for. Who do you want in the position of being, navigating the district potentially through a difficult time? One thing that I think is important to point out is the growth that's happening. This is a question I'm getting a lot from constituents. How do we stop the growth, or what can we do about the growth? And the growth really at the end of the day is what's propelling largely the need for this levy. It is growth outside of the municipality of the city of Dublin. And I think that we're going to have to work smarter to figure out what additional levers, soft levers and hard levers we can pull, either through policy, through relationships out in Union County and Jerome Township. And I know that people are working on that, but we've got to really keep digging on that. I think we also need to educate citizens better out in Union County and Jerome Township so that they understand how all this funding works out there and what they can do to actually impact these outcomes as well. What I've been saying recently is the growth is coming. So we can have growth with resources, or we can have growth without resources. And I personally choose to have the resources because I don't want our children in overcrowded classrooms. Lastly, I think when it comes to spending money in the future, I think it's really important that our school district keeps its promises that it makes. So I think we have to be really judicious about the promises that we make based on levy requests. And I think also, let me just finish this one thought, if you will allow me. Community engagement before a levy is even put on the table. I think we can do a better job. I think that needs to happen better in the future so that everyone's prepared and understand why we're coming to the table.
Great, thank you very much, Heather. So next one, Diva's going to answer the question first. So let me put that on the chat first. So some teachers aired concern about the lack of resources in their classes and buildings. Some complain about inequality between Scioto and Jerome, for example. Where on the DCS budget will you look to see if this is the case, and how would you address that with teachers?
I think it's important that we do address this inequity. I went to Jerome myself, and it was pretty evident that there was a disparity between Scioto and Jerome. When we look at the budget, Jerome does get the most money, but that's because it has the most students. It's the largest school. So I don't think that that's the problem. I think the issue is when we look at the students in those schools themselves. Jerome is by far the most affluent high school, and Scioto is the least. I believe about 2% of Jerome students get free or reduced lunch versus Scioto students, it's closer to 30%. There's a clear economic disparity between those schools. And I think that's actually that's what's causing this inequity that we see. And this leads to inequities in performance as well. Jerome students on average, when it comes to a lot of our state testing, do better on all of them by close to 10 to 20% than Scioto students. And again, I think that all comes back to that economic inequity. I think we need to ensure that the students at Scioto and our less affluent schools are getting the resources they need, are getting that extra support, because we know students who come from less affluent areas do have more barriers to academic success and have less resources than students at Jerome, for example. So I think we need to be supporting them more, putting more of our resources toward those students because we know that they need it more.
Great, thank you very much, Diva. Chris?
Yeah, thank you. I think this is an important question and issue for us to be able to discuss. I think those are also generalities in this question that probably need some more specifics in order to answer in full. But the district leadership takes equity very seriously. I think when you have to start in any of these discussions with what does staffing look like? What do class sizes look like when you're judging buildings that have greater socioeconomic challenges, because there's nothing more that's a greater predictor of academic success than socioeconomic background and where folks come from. We've been purposeful. Jerome has a 22 to 1 student to teacher ratio. Scioto is a 16 to 1. I think that speaks quite a bit to the level of importance that we put into ensuring that we're addressing some of those challenges that students may face in that sort of setting. When it comes to teachers having concerns and lack of resources, as a board member, it's easy to get caught up in the discussions that may take place, but there's a chain of command within a building, and they've got a principal who is responsible for advocating on their behalf. There is a curriculum team that ensures that we're getting, while being as fiscally responsible as possible, the resources that are needed inside of our classrooms and inside of our buildings. This isn't something that has been elevated to me before, but I think that across all of our buildings here in the district, whether or not it's high school, middle school, or elementary, they all have their own inherent challenges. And it's upon us, it's upon district leadership to ensure that we're continuing to work with our staff members to help guide and work ourselves through those issues.
Okay, thank you very much. Heather, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I don't know on the budget where I would look, because I do have the same understanding as Chris that there's been intentional resourcing of Scioto High School to account for some of the socioeconomic differences and some of the needs there. But what I would say about, this targets the first priority. If you look at my website, it's called Solve for the Whole, which is making sure that we are thinking of ourselves as one Dublin City Schools as opposed to 3 high school areas. I think that when we think about resourcing, when we think about community attitudes towards certain areas of our district, I would like us to hold a mirror up to our community. I think that sometimes there is a perception that Scioto High School, for a variety of reasons, some of which I wish we would dig into a little bit more as a community, is not as good of a high school, or that you won't get as good of an education there. And some of that community mentality then drives where people choose to buy homes, where people want to have their kids go to high school, things like that. What boosters, for example, the socioeconomic base of a high school influences the infusion of resources into boosters, athletic boosters, extracurriculars. There are ways, as a board member, I would really like to incentivize our extracurriculars, our PTOs, our boosters across our district. Instead of, yes, it's great to think about contributing to your neighborhood school, and I would never want to take that away, but I want us to expand the way we think about what it means to give to our district, what it means to support all of our students in the district from a resources perspective, and really make sure that that all of our students are having not the same experiences, we can't guarantee that, but have really well greatly resourced experiences and have at least the same opportunities to have, the experiences that they would like to have in the Dublin City Schools.
Great. Thank you very much, Heather. Amy, your thoughts?
Well, I guess my kids went to the middle school because they went to they didn't go into Scioto, they didn't go to Jerome, they went to Kaufman. It's right in the middle. And that's what it's typically seen as. It's in the middle between them. But I do agree that we need to look at us as one Dublin, but we also have to recognize that the students at Jerome, Kaufman, and Scioto all have different needs because of those different backgrounds. So some of the things that I would look at is making sure that, especially I know as a teacher who prepares kids for college, that if they are first generation to go to college, that it's very hard to navigate all of that. So making sure that we have resources for students at the schools that need it for helping to navigate those students and where to go. how to fill out FAFSA, and maybe Scioto might need a little bit more in that area, whereas Jerome might need a little bit more because the pressure and the stakes are so high for some of those kids. We might have to be looking at mental health resources for them and how to take care of themselves. So I think we just need to recognize that they have different needs, and socioeconomic level and differences is it is the key indicator on whether or not a student is able to be fully successful. You know, I have students myself who are working full-time jobs just to help their families out. And those aren't things that you typically think of as high schoolers and what they have to do, but I definitely know that probably in Scioto we have more of that than in Jerome. And so we need to find ways to support those kids and making sure that they have whatever future they want. And that includes, if it's not college, making sure that we have apprenticeship programs, that we build relationships with businesses, and that we encourage them to get a trade skill, if not college.
Great, thank you very much, Amy. We have time for one more question, and I'm going to go ahead and post it into the chat so everybody can see it. So the question is, please explain if you support having a student resource officer in our Dublin schools. A student resource officer is a police officer, a counselor, and a teacher all in one. So we're going to go ahead and let's see, who was the last one that went first? So we're going to start with Chris on this one.
My very straightforward answer is yes. I've been involved in the expansion of our school resource officer program here for the greater part of my time as a board member. And that's most recently included the expansion on the middle school level. In addition to that, what I think that the challenge is not so much a student resource officer expansion, but we just had a meeting with actually Chief Price here this week on this. And we've talked about it in public. It is difficult to then find that many police officers to serve in that capacity and to efficiently use them at the elementary school level. But I am a big proponent. We have added on retired police officers, some of which are retired SROs who work in our buildings at the elementary level. They have assigned schools that they rotate and are engaged in throughout the course of the day, and they're able to provide a level of safety and security beyond what we currently have. But I think that we need to do more. I think it's upon us to ensure that all of our buildings are safe and as secure as possible. And a big part in that is looking at possibilities that may not necessarily fall within the direct lines or thought process that we all may have, but are ones that we can collaborate with the city of Dublin, the police department, to ensure that we've got individuals who are trained, who are qualified, who have the proper skill set and personalities that we would want inside of our buildings, interacting with our children and ensuring that each and every one of our buildings is safe.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Chris. Heather?
Yeah, you know, I do support our SROs, and you know, I think we all get to know our various SROs in our buildings and probably have great relationships with them and adore them in different ways. One of the things that I would like to make sure, so yes, it makes me as a parent, you know, feel a little bit more secure knowing that there's a security presence at my child's school. So from that perspective, I'm very supportive. I do want to make sure that if we expanded the use of SROs into schools, that we are being mindful and looking at data to make sure that we are not maybe subconsciously potentially using that the presence of SROs is not driving up, for example, over punishment of students of color. That is something that the data show, that when you use SROs, that there is disproportionate punishing of students of color and Black students in particular. So it is a yes, and it is a yes, I support SROs in all of our buildings. Yes, as a parent, I want our buildings to be safe, and I feel that SROs accomplish that. And yes, I also want us to make sure that we're looking at data to make sure that as we implement that we have a lens on, you know, that we have a good lens on potential bias that can happen.
Great, thank you very much. Amy?
This is a great question, and it's kind of ironic because I was actually talking to Hilliard Darby's SRO about more SROs in schools, and one of those things that the question, the police officer is a counselor and a teacher all in one. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree that one of the main jobs that any SRO does is make that community connection with students. I know that students love their SROs. I see it every day in the schools, how much they respect them. And our SROs really bring a piece to the school that we can't possibly know. So our SROs are able to know if the night before, somebody had called the police on a student's parent. And so now that student might be in need of some extra support because of what had happened the night before. Those are things that schools typically wouldn't be privy to, but the SRO, because of their unique position, are able to help provide that to the teachers. I know I invite my SRO in every year to teach a unit on student rights and what they have. So they also are that teacher sometimes. And it's good for students to see that positive interaction. But the most important thing, and I think Chris touched on this a little bit, is that we have to make sure we're getting the right people in that job. So the SRO's job is to not punish necessarily, but it is there to try to prevent that from happening and try to prevent people and try to keep kids out of the system, not put them in the system. And I think we need to make sure that any SRO that we hire really has that frame of mind that they are going into this to be there for the student body, not necessarily to be there to punish students or to put people in jail.
Great, thank you very much. Diva?
Generally, I support SROs in school, but I don't necessarily support the expansion of the amount of SROs we have. As someone who was a student in the district, I can say that the SROs that we did have in our schools were a great part of our community. I mean, many of them knew me by name, and would address us as such. We all were familiar with the SROs, and we liked having them there for the most part. However, when we look at the data, there are some inconsistencies in regards to how much they actually help. The main area in that they help is that they help parents and students to feel safer. Especially white students, they feel much safer when we have SROs in schools. However, like Heather was mentioning earlier, there is a disparity in between how students are treated. Students of color versus white students are treated by SROs. Students of color specifically tend to be targeted far more by law enforcement in general, and SROs only contribute to that in some cases. Additionally, the presence of SROs and being prosecuted for disorderly conduct can have a causal relationship between adult incarceration, which is something that I do think we need to look at. However, in our school district, just based on my experience as well as the experience of students around us, I think our SROs are still a good part of our community, especially because they do make sure to integrate themselves in our classes. In middle school, in our health classes, the SRO would often come in and lead talks. And I think as long as we ensure that our SROs continue to be as much of a teacher as they are a police officer, then I support them. We just need to be emphasizing that rather than emphasizing criminalization.
Great, thank you very much, Diva. So we're gonna go ahead and do a closing statement for each one of the candidates. So you can speak freely, but there were some questions on the forum that attendees were asking about any kind of endorsements that you may have, and also if you're running as a ticket with another candidate. So if you can please address that, everybody will get 1 minute as a closing statement. We'll go back to starting with Heather.
Well, I want to thank everyone again for coming and thank AACO for hosting. I think as you go to the polls and as you make your decisions about who to vote for, I would just encourage you to seek out as much information as you can about candidates, be informed, and definitely make sure that you're talking with your friends, neighbors, and community members. I have 3 endorsements. I have an endorsement from the Dublin Education Association. I have an endorsement from Moms Demand Action for Gun Violence Prevention. And I have an endorsement. Actually, I don't have an endorsement. I'm a candidate of distinction for Moms Demand Action. And I have an endorsement from the Matriots. All 3 organizations are nonpartisan and endorse individuals across political parties. I am not running as a slate, and I am not running on a partisan ticket. I am an independent, and I will truly seek to be a unifier for this community. And I hope to have your support. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Amy?
So first, thank you for hosting this and for giving us this forum to speak to potential voters. And thank you to all of those who came and listened to us. I also believe you need to make sure that you are voting with your best interest in mind. I encourage everyone to go to vote411.org to find out more about our candidates or go to our websites. Aside from that, I do have the Gun Sense candidate distinction from Moms Demand Action. I am also a Canary candidate endorsed by Senator Sherrod Brown, and I have the endorsements of the 3 county Democratic parties of Union, Delaware, and Franklin County, and I will have one more endorsement that I will be announcing by the end of this week. So stay tuned. I'm not allowed to say it yet.
Great, thank you. Okay, Diva?
I also want to thank the AACO once again for inviting me here, and then also thank everyone else for coming to view this. It's always refreshing to see so many people in our community be engaged when it comes to these kind of decisions. And it's also great to see the Asian American community, our community, be so engaged when it comes to public participation in general. In terms of endorsements, I also have the Democratic Party's endorsement along with Amy, and I have the Moms Demand Action Gun Sense distinction. I'll also be getting an endorsement later, which I will be announcing as well. Other than that, though, I just want to thank everyone for coming out, and also just thank everyone for listening to me and supporting a student when it comes to this position.
Thank you very much. And finally, Chris.
Thank you again for hosting. I'm passionate about Dublin, being born and raised here. My wife and I purposely have stayed. We purposely are raising our family here, and I look forward to the future of the Dublin community. From an endorsement standpoint, as I mentioned previously, I'm endorsed by the Republican Party as well as the Dublin Educators Association. Thankful for both endorsements. At the end of the day, for me, I'm from Dublin, born and raised here, grassroots oriented. I'm not seeking support or endorsements from organizations that are outside of our community. I'm focused on serving the people that I've served for the past 20 years and hopefully get the opportunity to serve another 4. Thank you again. I will say this, having been through several election cycles, this is not an easy one job to do, but it's also not easy going through a campaign, both for my 3 fellow candidates here, as well as the 2 that are not on the call tonight. But more importantly, it's not easy for their families as well. There's a lot of sacrifice that goes on in order for this to be pulled off. We're living it from different spectrums, whether or not it's with our kids or Diva. I'm sure that I've seen your parents around and the support that you're getting from your family. I think that there's a lot of credit to anybody who's willing to step out in front, put themselves out on the line, take some of the criticism that we get that comes along with it, but ultimately hope that no matter the outcome, we're pushing things forward in the right direction.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. So for all the attendees, you have no idea how much time it takes to run a campaign. And for all of these people that are giving up their personal time to run a campaign and provide service to our community, we thank you for taking a proactive part. Good luck to all of you as we progress down to the final stretch of the campaign. Thank you for attending.
Thank you all for attending. And just I want to echo what Dr. Sun and Chris said. it takes a lot of guts, a lot of resource, a lot of energy, and a lot of endurance and courage to put yourself out there and campaign for this position. So we appreciate you regardless of the outcome. So thank you for taking the time to be here, to make yourself available to the questions. And thank you very much to Dr. Sun for a wonderful session. Thank you a lot. Thank you to all our 100+ audience. You know, at one time, I see we have more than 150 people. For spending the time, try to get to know the candidates so that you can make a good decision for the city of Dublin. So thank you all. Just make sure that if you haven't registered, register before October 10th. And then our video will be available on YouTube. We'll post the link at our Facebook, which is AA Coalition Ohio. Make sure you vote on November 7th and make sure we send the best people to the school board. Thank you all. Have a good night. Take good care and
Good night.
bye-bye.
Dr. Sun, great job.
Yep. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.